Welcome to Mardi's Kitchen, a show where I explore traditional cooking methods and the benefits to our health and well-being. Nutritious, wholesome food doesn't have to be complicated. Current research has discovered the link between poor gut health and mental health challenges such as anxiety and depression. Did you know that there is more serotonin in the gut than in the brain? By simply switching to, say, sourdough bread or having a little sauerkraut with your meal can dramatically improve your health. I'm really excited to introduce you to people who understand whole food living. Join me and the cooks and the bakers and the true artisans who embrace simplicity and honour age-old traditions. People who eat well, to live well, to be well. Hi, I'm Mardi and today is all about sourdough. I'm here at Crystal Waters in the Sunshine Coast hinterland and I'm thrilled to be able to introduce you to a local sourdough baker, Les Bartlett. Les has been generous enough to invite me into his bakery to show me where he bakes traditionally leavened sourdough bread every Friday. Let's go check it out. Wow, this place is amazing, Les. And this oven is incredible, a classic wood-fired oven.
Yeah, this is the heart of our bakery. It's a 6x4 retained heat oven. Alan Scott built that in 2001. Alan spent a lot of time researching ovens and he wrote a fabulous book called The Bread Builders. The last dollar I had went into about 20 or 30 bags of flour and we made some bread, put it in my old XC Falcon and ended up at Mardi. And it was fantastic. From day one, people loved it and been selling bread and making money ever since.
And they still do?
Yep.
Excellent, that's awesome, Les. And so did you make everything by hand in the beginning?
The first 15, I mixed everything by hand. I had this idea that mixing by hand and human contact with the food was an important part of it. So for a very long time I did that. And ended up with sprained wrists and elbows and shoulders. At one stage I couldn't even lift my arms above here. But now I have a mixer over here.
So this is the machine?
Yeah, this is the main one we're using now. We used to just mix on the bench.
On this bench here?
Yep.
Everything on this bench here?
Yep.
And is that your flour mill up there?
Yep, that's our flour mill.
So can we go and mill some flour?
Sure.
Fantastic. All right, let's go. Wow, Les, this is an amazing machine.
What we've got is a 14-inch stone mill, very much like they've been using in Europe for the last 800 or 900 years. 2 stones. The top one rotates over the bottom one. And then we've got this little sweeper that comes around. Grains go in the top. As the flour comes out of the stones, if we open this one here, it goes down there and we get wholemeal wheat into a bag. If we close that one and open this one, it goes down into a different chute and there's a whole series of sieves that will take the bran out and we get white flour out of the chutes and bran out of the end. Let's put it together and see what we can do.
Mill some flour.
Yep.
Fantastic.
So that's what happens, it spins and this brings the flour around to where we want it. And what we have here, okay, as the stones spin, the little cam jiggles the feeder here.
Yep.
We put the seed in, this jiggles so that it flows well and that's it, we've got flour. Just trying to get back to the varieties before we hybridised and changed the structure of the wheat to see what a difference that makes to our bread.
And that goes back to gluten sensitivity, not digesting wheats how we used to, because like a lot of people say our grandparents and everyone else could, like years and hundreds of years ago, or not even hundreds of years ago, they didn't have the issues that we're having now with eating wheat. But now it's so common.
I think there have been celiacs, but what we're seeing these days is a whole raft of sensitivities to grains, and I'm very sad that wheat's been caught up in that, because we've had wheat in our diet for many thousands of years, well before we even made leavened bread. You know, they reckon that came out of Ethiopia and down into Egypt and then through the Mesopotamia. And I'm convinced that most of those problems that we're experiencing are not from the grain itself, but by the way we grow, process, and use the wheat itself. So,
and hybridise it to make it perform in a particular way that consumers want. But now consumers don't want that anymore. People want artisan style bread. People are going for origin grains.
I want proper food.
They want proper food. We want proper food again. And this is the beginning, because bread is so much a staple on our tables. And it's the scariest part when you go, oh my goodness, I'm starting to feel gluten sensitive and I can't eat bread anymore. What do I do? Then it's not that hard. All you have to do is just make some small changes. Find a good sourdough bread, locally made with a good grain. I personally notice the change. Now that I only eat sourdough, I'm fine. And my children eat sourdough that I actually make.
Sadly, once the sensitivity kicks in, it's sometimes very difficult to reverse.
It is, it is.
So hopefully we can get our kids eating good food and those sort of things won't happen.
And they won't experience that. So sourdough is our ally.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, let's grind some flour.
Okay.
Oh my goodness, this is amazing.
Okay, there you have it. Fresh ground whole wheat flour.
Wow, that is absolutely amazing. Look at that. It smells so good too. So your starter must be amazing if it's fed this.
Maybe you should have a look at it.
I would love to. Let's go check out your starter. Fantastic. Let's go. So here we are, Les. We're at the beginning of the sourdough, so the starter. We've got the starter, the mother, the culture. I can sure smell it and it smells amazing. I always say that your loaf of bread is only as good as your starter, and my starter is 6 years old. I made it from scratch and it makes the most amazing sourdough bread, but I have to nurture it and look after it. Can I pour some of this out into here so people can see what it's like? And can you tell me what your starter is made of? And actually, what is the starter?
A starter is what you use to make a loaf of sourdough bread, which replaces the commercial yeast or baker's yeast. And really all it is flour and water, and preferably wholemeal rye and whole wheat, because the bacteria that live in there might just be flour and water, but there are billions of lactobacillus bacteria and a wild yeast. So it's really interesting because people often get excited that they went to France and got a 100-year-old starter and they come back here, but the beauty of this is when they come back with their 100-year-old starter and start to use it, they're breathing their own lactobacillus bacteria into it, and the little wild yeast from outside are finding a new home. And in a very short time, that starter is very specific to that baker and that environment. And so the beauty of it is that this starter will make bread unique to this baker and this bakery, and so that's the thing that I love about it, really. Nowhere else can you get this loaf of bread.
And what sort of flours do you feed your starter? Because it's pretty dark. Mine's very white, it's very light. I feed mine organic wheat flour and organic spelt flour.
Well, I particularly like to have a wholemeal rye and a wholemeal wheat.
When this starter is mixed with fresh flour and water and salt to make a dough just like this, tell me what this does, because in my classes, everyone asks me, the first question everyone asks is, why can I eat sourdough bread, but I can't eat ordinary bread?
The difference between a sourdough loaf and a regular loaf is that a regular loaf really is just blown up raw flour. So they put yeast in it, and the yeast often has sugar or something to feed on, and it produces gas, which just blows this flour up, and these days they can make a loaf of bread in half an hour. So nothing's changed, it's just raw flour blown up. So when you put a leaven in, these little bacteria, as long as you leave it and fully ferment it, they change every protein string in the loaf of bread and change it into much simpler nutrients that our body can handle very easy. It's very much like the same process that happens between your mouth and your gut, that those early stages of digestion have already happened before you even introduce the bread to your body.
When it comes into our guts, our body doesn't have to actually fight to try and break it down and cause inflammation, therefore causing gluten sensitivity or gut disorders or bloating, and it's just that simple, isn't it?
Yeah. And the secret to getting that tolerance is making sure it's fully fermented.
This dough is a mixture of flour, water and salt, and you can see it's beautiful and fermented. This is the first prove, is it?
Yeah. We mixed this 3.5, 4 hours ago, and now we'll cut it into loaf-sized portions and shape it ready to let it do its final proving, which will be another 4 hours. After my bake today, I'll put that back in the fridge, and that will sit in the fridge, and the little bacteria will go into hibernation and wait to be fed again. So I'll bring that out. I bake every Friday. I bring it out Thursday night, feed it up into the amount that I need for my bake.
So all of that magic is happening in here. And then you use that beautiful fermented goodness, mix it with some fresh flour and water. So this process is just continuing. So it's a slow fermentation process, and everything's being digested and everything's being released, and then you've got this beautiful dough all ready for your body. Can we shape some dough? Sure. And you've got some old school scales there. I use digital scales at home because I don't have enough room on my bench for this, because I've got all my other appliances on there. Once you start making this, I think you get the understanding and it becomes part of your life, and you just don't go back.
So you've shaped straight into the loaf. We often do a pre-shape. But
When you bake your bread, Les, what's the difference between the baking process of cooking in a wood-fired oven as opposed to a baking oven at home? Like obviously the taste and the smell and the crust and everything, but it doesn't take as long, does it?
I load my oven pretty tightly. A lot of the young bakers like to load them loose because then you get much more intense heat onto the loaf of bread. The main difference is that in a wood-fired oven you're getting quite different sorts of heat interacting with your loaf of bread. Like if you use a gas or electric oven, the gas or electricity heats the air, and it's the air that then bakes the bread, the air temperature. So it's a convective heat. Whereas in a wood oven, you have 3 different sorts of heat. You get that same sort of heat from the air, but you also get a radiated heat from the bricks themselves, and a direct transfer of heat from the bottom. And it's so intense that it really gives you a good bounce. Like you put some bread into a regular oven and your temperature will drop and then build back up. You put it into this oven, it gets
spring.
Yeah, just like that.
Excellent. Oh, Les, it's such a shame that. How long is this going to take to ferment? How long is this fermenting for?
This will be another 4 or 5 hours before we can put that in the oven.
Oh, that's a shame.
But you don't have to worry because I've prepared some.
Have you got some bread?
We can put in the oven now. Yeah.
Excellent. Because actually, I bought some organic salted butter with me because I love your bread, and I thought we could maybe bake some bread,
Sounds
sit down,
good.
have a chat,
That's
have some
all you
organic
need.
butter. What do you think?
Beautiful.
Excellent.
Let's do that.
It's not that hard. By simply changing a few of our eating habits, we can make a huge difference to our lives and our health. All we have to do is eat well, live well, and be well. So let's cut into this bread.
Try some of this.
Some more here.